Royal London was still yawning through its Monday routine when the first tremor hit. A single, impeccably timed leak whispered that King Charles III had quietly sealed a decision that rewrites the hierarchy of his own blended dynasty. Within hours, the tremor morphed into a seismic jolt. Sources confirmed that Camilla'S two adult children, food writer Tom Parker Bowles and gallerist Laura Lopez, would never receive the courtesy titles their mother once coyly assumed would be hers to bestow, while the teenage Windsor cousins, Lady Louise Windsor and her younger brother James, Earl of Wessex, had suddenly been cleared for future royal elevation and fast-tracked working status. What looked like a dry line item in a Crown Office register exploded into a street-level drama because palace veterans instantly recognized the fingerprints of the Prince and Princess of Wales all over the blueprint, and because Queen Camilla, still smarting from decades of public skepticism, felt the full royal rug slide from beneath her Manolo court shoes. Aides later dubbed it the Sandringham shakeup. For months Prince William and Princess Catherine had been quietly lobbying Charles to let them execute what insiders call Operation Fresh Blood, a corporate-style restructure that would shrink the front line to a dozen measurable workhorses, reroute minor patronages to where they'd actually thrive, and end the era of stipend drawing cousins coasting on ancestral fumes. The couple's logic was brutal but clear. Polls show that the public will accept a cost-sharing constitutional monarchy only if every visible royal pulls tangible weight. Catherine, beginning chemotherapy yet refusing, her exact words, to sit under a duvet while the firm drifted, spent convalescent evenings diagramming flowcharts with William at Adelaide Cottage. William carried the pitch to Sandringham over a single malt and an honesty impossible to dodge. Monarchy must modernize faster than headlines, or spend the next decade defending antique privilege against hungry Republican campaigners. Charles, still navigating his own cancer regimen and haunted by the fragility of his reign's window, agreed. Nobody, least of all Camilla, expected the axe to fall so suddenly or slice so deep. She had believed, friends swear she'd been informally assured, that some gentle courtesy style, perhaps a viscountcy off to one side, would one day lend her children a ceremonial sheen. That hope evaporated in a single thin envelope delivered by the King's private secretary late on a damp Thursday. Its language was coldly modern. Her offspring led successful private lives and do not seek nor require the status of the crown. The same document confirmed the creation of a brand new working tier called Royal Companions of Windsor, an unambiguous on-ramp for Lady Louise and James to step into salaried duty the moment they finish higher education. The palace's stuccoed corridors have absorbed decades of royal rows, but staff swear they have never heard such a clang of fury as the Queen Consort's first response. One footman, carrying a tray of tea meant for Charles's study, claims Camilla'S voice sliced through two oak doors. "Remind me whose head wears the tiara here?" She had reason to feel blindsided. For years she'd been celebrated as the king's peerless stabilizer, the woman who kept the monarchy's emotional gears oiled. Overnight she was recast as the senior whose household is being quietly rationalized. Enter Princess Anne with the subtlety of a cavalry charge. Summoned to a crisis breakfast at Clarence House, the Princess Royal heard Camilla insist that Louise, 22, was too untested for heavy lifting. And who has paid more county hall visits and christened more rescue lifeboats than any living royal, shot back that Tom and Laura had spent entire lives in privacy and would run a mile at the first whiff of rota duty, while Louise had actually raised her hand. "We reward volunteers, not reluctant conscripts," she reportedly concluded, draining her coffee and marching out before anyone could rebut. Her stance sealed the conversation. Charles signed the paperwork. Camilla'S emerald bracelet snapped later that morning. Staff still debate whether it broke on its own or beneath the grip of her frustration. Behind the headlines, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, became the unlikely kingmaker. For years she'd shielded her daughter Louise from the harsher edges of royal life, choosing small boarding schools and shielding her from the paparazzi. When William and Catherine first broached the idea of Louise stepping up, Sophie balked, partly out of maternal instinct, partly from skepticism that the monarchy truly needed fresh hands. It took multiple Kensington Palace dinners, Catherine wearing a silk headscarf over post-chemo hair, William wielding data on approval ratings cannibalized by spare cousins, to sway her. The turning point came during a late-night walk at Bagshot Park when Sophie asked Louise point-blank if she wanted to serve. Louise said yes. She'd spent a gap year volunteering at riding therapy centers, discovered she liked public engagement, And, in her words, if Aunt Catherine can do speeches while fighting cancer, I can at least try. Sophie ceded. Charles sweetened the offer. An entirely new style, royal companion of Windsor, free of Her Royal Highness baggage yet unmistakably senior. The symbolism felt like a direct echo of his guilt over how exposed William and Harry were in the 90s. He was saying to Louise, "You'll have rank, but you'll have armor too." Camilla saw a shell game, her kids frozen out while the House of Wessex, always discreet, earned gilding. Meanwhile, Catherine quietly annexed two of Camilla's glittering patronages, the Royal Academy of Dance and the National Portrait Gallery. Cultural journalists sensed a power transfer. The tabloids screamed Kate crowns Camilla's culture court. Camilla publicly congratulated the princess with honeyed words, but privately told confidants Catherine risked stretching herself thin. The phrase leaked within 24 hours and, unsurprisingly, Anne's retort leaked moments later, better thin and effective than wide and idle. The Princess Royal's cheekbones could slice glass, but her sarcasm cuts deeper. The shakeup's financial arm has stitched nerves rawer still. William wants peripheral stipends trimmed by 25%. Camilla argues that without security allowances her extended relations will be hounded by photographers. William counters that taxpayers will not bankroll Parker Bowles' grocery runs if Parker Bowles never cuts a ribbon. Catherine, ever diplomatic, offered to create a media training toolkit for any semi-royal who wishes to take on light duties. The Queen Consort sees that as salt in the wound. Then fate added soap opera poignancy. Lady Louise's routine medical scan revealed markers for a rare lymphoma. Preventative chemo begins this autumn. Camilla seized on the diagnosis to urge a freeze on structural reforms. How could a convalescent 22-year-old shoulder duty? Charles, wrestling his own cancer battle, instead praised Louise's courage and insisted the plan proceed. The public saw a grandfather figure protecting a brave granddaughter. Camilla saw her last argument dissolve. Charles's determination to shield the young where he once failed arguably stems from lingering Diana-era guilt, and Camilla has found that emotional calculus impossible to override. The fallout in their marriage is visible if you know where to look. At recent joint appearances, Cheltenham races, a Commonwealth reception, the couple's body language has chilled. Once, Charles touched Camilla's elbow at every step. Now aides note a deliberate inch of space. Late-night policy huddles occur with Camilla excluded, replaced by William, Catherine, and Sir Clive Alderton. The Queen Consort has taken to phoning Sister Annabel for strategy chats, then offering to mentor Catherine in her expanded schedule, an olive branch that Catherine thanks politely yet rarely schedules. As tensions churn behind red velvet ropes, the outside world devours the spectacle. On TikTok, #TeamKate edits showcase Catherine's portrait gallery speech spliced with chemo-clinic footage, scoring millions of likes. Twitter seesaws between #respect Camilla and #modernize the monarchy hashtags. Talk radio hosts pit royal biographers against millennial activists. Pollsters record Catherine's approval surging to 80% among 18 to 30s, unprecedented for a Windsor since Diana, while Camilla's inches downward despite decades of rehabilitation. Next on the calendar is Royal Ascot, where Camilla plans a high-profile lunch in the royal box. If Tom and Laura attend, titleless yet flanked by cameras, the optics will set commentary shows ablaze. Palace schedulers are scrambling to erect velvet ropes within velvet ropes to prevent viral split screens. December brings whispers that Charles will sign letters patent styling James as Prince James of Wessex upon his 18th birthday. Such a move would crystallize the Windsor cousin line and likely push Camilla from simmer to full boil. And looming over all is the unspoken timetable of Charles's health. Modernization efforts once plotted over a decade are telescoping into months, because the king, confronting mortality, craves a stable succession. William and Catherine stand ready with a blueprint. Camilla fears that blueprint sidelines her legacy. The monarchy, ever a family firm, is suddenly a boardroom thriller where quarterly targets, poll numbers, cost reviews, social media engagement chase centuries-old protocol. Can Charles keep momentum without detonating personal bonds? Can Camilla pivot from central pillar to elder stateswoman without headlines casting her as obstructive? Will Louise's health rally enough for her to debut as the fresh-faced working royal 2026 now expects? Every answer determines public consent. And consent, once lost, is hard to retrieve with sash and scepter alone. For now, the scoreboard stands stark. William and Catherine riding a wave of metrics and millennial goodwill, Camilla clutching precedent, wounded pride, and a still potent soft power toolkit, Charles pacing corridors, pen poised above the next decree, and sharpening quips that slice through fog, Sophie steeling her daughter for a role she never wanted but now embraces. The crown, solid gold, nevertheless trembles above a family rewriting its own rulebook in real time while the world watches, counts every curtsy, times every balcony nod, and wonders which chapter of this saga will finally deliver either the restoration of royal unity or the most magnificent implosion since abdication. Popcorn is optional, staying tuned isn't.